Good morning, OMBS students, the year of 2020. That's a year that no one is ever going to forget. So you've already made yourself quite famous in a roll call of honor, if you like, as having been there, done it in a way which no one else is ever going to have required of them. And I'm here to talk to you today about your interview and how to conduct an interview in a virtual situation on screen, which again is a first for everyone, a first for the clients and a first for you. So I think a few things to go through here to help you is really important. And of course, the great thing about learning is it's entirely portable. So it's my gift to you. It's my gift to you for you to take away and use for the rest of your lives. And I know that sitting in your rooms at home or your rooms wherever you might be, some of you with your parents, some of you might well have mothers who I've had this kind of conversation with in the past. And so greetings to you as well. And I'm just going to do my very best to make life as easy as I possibly can for you at a time when there are so many difficulties laid in your path. You really need all the help you can get. So here we go. First of all, there's no point in applying any technique until you've worked out how you feel about things. And if any of you are feeling cheated, disappointed, why has it happened to you? It's not fair. What's going to happen next? I'm worried, I'm concerned, I'm frightened. And altogether, I'm pretty fed up because I can't see where things are going. And I was going to be having a wonderful time in Oxford. I was going to meet all those marvelous people and have fun and learn and prepare myself for an exciting time working, say, in London or anywhere in the world. And suddenly everything is in question. Everything is in question. And none of the people that you have turned to in the past for answers and solutions can really give you anything that's solid. They can only say to you, we don't know. But what I can say to you is, at least I can help you prepare for whatever it is that comes your way, just whatever it might be. Here are some ideas from me to you, which I know will help prepare you for some of the difficulties. And I know that these things I'm going to say to you are true because this is the fourth major difficulty that I and the company, Angela Mortimer, has to work its way through. And it's always the same. The first thing that happens is life slows down and becomes incredibly boring. Everything is frustrating. Everything around you conspires to make you feel negative. And that's my first lesson to you. You've got to find the positive. So, for example, before you have your interview, you go and you do a workout. I don't care who you use. You can use Joe Wicks. I think he's brilliant. He always makes you laugh. He's so down there getting dirty with you. Do one of those, record one, go onto YouTube. But whatever you do, make sure by the time you come on screen, you're well oxygenated and you're ready for whatever comes your way. And you've got pink cheeks, you're looking good, you're feeling good because you've got rid of any sense of emotion that might have any negative connotation. It's gone away, you've used it up, it's gone, and you're there ready with all your positive thoughts about what might lie ahead for you in this interview you've got coming up. So, I said pink cheeks, let's talk about how you look. How you look's important. And the most important thing about how you look isn't how fat, how thin, whether you've got your roots showing or whether your mascara's worked or whether your eyebrows need refreshing. It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with how you come across as an individual, as a human being. It's to do with, are you coming across as normal? Are you coming across as the kind of person that anyone in their right mind would be very happy to share space with? Someone who would be a good person to have in the office, someone who would be a good influence on all the other people around, helping to create an atmosphere of positivity. And my word, the companies out there are looking for this kind of element in a person. Also bear in mind that the way you look for an interview in real life or on screen is always how people imagine you look when you're looking at your best. You make an effort to look good for an interview. Everyone assumes that you'll look worse subsequently. So make sure your best is just about as good as it can get. And make sure if you have got gorgeous, long, swishy hair that you don't spend your entire interview swishing it, because it's a great distraction for the person interviewing you. Make sure also that the environment in which you're sitting. It could be the kitchen. You could be flat sharing. You could have people coming in and out and disturbing you. Make sure that you call time on everything to do with your flat shares. This is your time. You don't want anyone anywhere near you for at least 15 minutes before your interview. You want to have peace, quiet, time to settle your mind into what you're going to be saying, what you're going to be doing, how it's going to be coming out. And you don't want anyone coming in to make a cup of coffee in the middle of it. So just make those lines, draw those lines. It's only fair, it's only right. And then you know at least you've got your flatmates on your side. And don't have the cat come in and walk to and fro across your keyboard, tickling your nose with its tail. That's happened to someone I was interviewing the other day, and it really did put, well, I don't know if it put me off more than her, but it certainly was a great distraction. And it was like the way cats are, it was not going to be denied its pleasure. So you've got yourself set up. The kitchen isn't a great environment. Try putting try finding the fuzzy switch on your laptop so that everything is just a blur. And then you don't have to worry about what it looks like behind. Make sure your face is illuminated. You don't want to look as if you're coming out of a cave at people. And make sure you're not too close and looming. And make sure you're not so far away that no one can see your features. Now, this is important because one thing which is lost in these Zoom meetings and in screen interviews is the little messages that we pick up from the close observation of people's faces, their body language, their movements. Those are the kind of clues which give us a sense of how self-confident they are, what their emotional state is, and the tiny little changes in your face when you're asked a question. These are more difficult to pick up in a Zoom meeting. Because of that, you've got to go through some preparation in advance of your meeting so that you're ready to arrange your features, whichever way, whatever question comes your way. And I'm going to be taking you through some of those so that you'll feel that you're ready for anything that anyone might throw at you. So here we go. So you're looking as good as it gets. You sorted your hair out. You've got a bit of extra lipstick on, even if you don't normally wear it. Otherwise, you find the screen is very bleaching and you can look like Jasper the Friendly Ghost. And you don't want to look like that. You want to look young, fit, healthy. Think about how you're going to arrange your laptop so you're not looking down the screen nor looking up. And put it on something that makes you feel good. If putting it on top of a big edition of Encyclopedia Britannica makes you feel good, then use that. It's a nice little uplift of, say, 4 inches. If you've chucked it a long while ago in favor of Google, then find a big box, the one you keep all your old love letters in. That's a nice one. And then you can sit and have your interview with your laptop sitting on top of all your love letters. So you're surrounded by your friends. Even if they're not your friends anymore, it was nice while it lasted. You've got something there which is a good feeling and it's all yours. It's like your teddy bear underneath your professional equipment. It's just a thought. I quite like doing it that way. And now let's talk about movement. It can make you feel very queasy. Don't move around too much. Look, it's just horrible. And everyone starts trying to follow you. Don't move. Sit comfortably at the outset so you don't need to move and so that you can really focus on what's going to be said to you. Put any landlines outside the door, shut the door. Make sure your mobile is turned off. Make sure it's also turned over, screen down, so if someone sends you a very distracting message, you don't have to take it. Just make sure you are tranquil in your mind and utterly focused on what comes next. And what comes next is, I'm not going to deal with your CV per se, that's a whole session in itself, but I am going to deal with your preparation for questions. Now, if you think about it, you and all your mates have very similar CVs. You all went to school, you all got your GCSEs, you all got your A levels, then some of you went on to university, most of you did, most of you got 2-1s. You're practically indistinguishable from each other on paper. On paper. But of course, that's just a very one-dimensional view of you. And of course, you all know you're very, very different people in real life. And I think there are so many people who say, oh, I'm not sure if I really like that person. And someone else will say, oh, They're very nice when you get to know them. They're really nice when you get to know them. Well, the interview is your opportunity for someone to get to know you and to get to know all the pleasant qualities that you have, pleasant as well as useful. And being pleasant in itself is being useful. In fact, when you're being interviewed, you're not being interviewed for your 2-1. You're not being interviewed for your wonderful memory recall of which King of England or chromosomes on a whatever. You're not being interviewed for any of that stuff. You're being interviewed for the person that you are, the person who, despite the educational system you've been through, isn't just like a sausage in a row. You are an individual person with lots to give in very many different ways to everyone else in your group. So this is where your skill of getting it out there becomes very important. And I want to give you some side headings so that you can think about the questions that you're going to have fired at you and what they're really asking you about. Because a question is a flat question. What's actually being sought after, the knowledge of you as an individual, is a very different thing. So let's have a look at that so that you're ready and prepared for that. Now, I said to you, you're not being interviewed for your 2-1 and for all that learning. Obviously, the kind of memory you have in your achievement isn't to be utterly dismissed, but neither is it the most significant part of you, because some of you perform well in exams, some of you get terribly nervous and have to be escorted from the room. We're all different when it comes to having that spotlight on us, but we're not different in that way when it comes to the kind of person we're trying to measure. And there are going to be some side headings I want to give you for you to be able to think about whereabouts on your CV you could find very good examples of how you excel in any of them. Not all of them, that would be a miracle, but any of them. And those are the ones which are going to be the distinctive aspect of you that you need to focus on. So, for example, your ability to influence people. That's an interesting one. Oh, but I'm only 18, I'm only 19, I'm only 20. I don't influence people. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. If you stop and think about it. What about the last time someone, say, for example, even in a domestic situation, said, oh, I'm going out now. And someone else said, oh, what about the washing up? And you said, yeah, come on, let's all do it together so we can all go out. That's influencing. That's being very influential. And if they actually do it, then that's a real win. And that means you really do have the ability to be able to make people stop, think, and behave in a different way. You could be asked the question, this is a good one, by the way, so get ready. From where do you derive your moral compass? Your moral compass. Oh, now I don't think any of you have taken an exam in that one. Your moral compass. Well, I think that 4-year-olds right now, and maybe a lot of adults, are drawing their moral compass from Peppa Pig, for example. But if you look back on your own childhood and upbringing, there'll be someone who taught you to be the person you are, taught you to be kind to people, taught you to be considerate, taught you the right way of thinking about things, to be kind, courteous, and considerate. These are things which are so important. And I'm not talking about political awareness and whether or not you're allowed to have a discussion or an argument and whether statues ought to be erected or pulled down. I'm talking about how you behave toward your common human being in a physical situation and the kind of behavior you could be relied upon to turn up with in any event. That's what the moral compass is, if you like. And if you're asked the question, where did you get it from? It's your opportunity to talk about some aspect of your upbringing, which could very much show you in a good light. Now, we don't choose our children and we don't choose our parents. If you're shown a bad example, it can mean you can be shifted into, I don't like that, I'll do it another way. If you're shown a good example, you can think, I admire that, I'll copy that. And there's the old Greek philosopher who talks about walking between two men. From the one, I see behaviors I don't admire. On the other hand, on the right hand, I walk with someone who behaves in a way which I find admirable, and I decide to copy that. So with your parents, with your peer group, with your brothers, with your sisters, with all those people, we see things of which we approve or disapprove. And that's how we learn how we want to be and the kind of person we want to be. And if you can just give some thought to that in advance of an interview, it helps you very much with how you present yourself and the amount of confidence you have in self-knowledge. So if a question like that is thrown across your pathway, you can think, oh yes, I've dealt with that. I've really thought that one through. I know the answer to that. I'm that kind of person. And if you look at this on my CV, you'll see how that's why I chose to do that. And that's how I carried it out. For example, which is why looking at your CV, you might like to reconsider how you've written some of it. And that would include your pastimes and hobbies, as well as anything to do with achievement in any of your colleges or universities you've been at so far. What I've just referred to, your moral compass, might come under the heading of integrity in competencies. Managing change and resilience in every family, in every situation, in every school we go to, something happens, and it really sets you back. It makes you think, oh my word, my best friend suddenly isn't my best friend anymore. My boyfriend's dumped me. Something's happened. I thought that I'd really got that one nailed and I haven't. And you feel cast down and you feel deserted. So what did you do to get over that? How did you behave to get around it? What did you do to build up your confidence? Did you switch friendship groups, having discovered that they didn't have the kind of qualities that you have found admirable? Or did you move into a different group as far as any way of thinking or learning was concerned? What did you do to change the situation in order to protect yourself? What was your way of doing it? And how well did you think it through? Just thinking through something like that can really help you to feel, whatever I'm asked, I'll know what the answer is because I've thought it through. And you might find yourself suddenly becoming more admiring of yourself and your achievements when you realize what you've managed despite the setbacks that have been in front of you. Initiative. This is a real opportunity to shine. And particularly in 2020, when you have so many options closed down on you, initiative can be shown in so many ways outside ordinary learning. It could be volunteering, a real opportunity to volunteer and to be creative and inventive about how you do it. Think around all the things to do with charity. They often give you an opportunity. And the great thing about volunteering is you don't have to be a kind of do-gooder type person, which sounds perhaps a bit like the end of fun rather than the beginning of it. It's a way of getting yourself into a completely different mix of people, many of whom might think, oh, well, they're not my kind of person at all. But just as I said, no, they're not your kind of person. They're another kind of person with a whole new learning opportunity of what they're like to work with. I watched something last night on telly I thought was just brilliant. It was clog dancing in Wales. And they were clog dancing in a factory, which now is no longer a weaving factory. It's just a museum piece. But the clog dancers performed, and the oldest one was 87, and the youngest one was 6. And you had everything in between, men and women, all tapping out, clog dancing, making the same noise that the looms had made when they'd been active. And I just thought, what a wonderful way for the old people to feel young and for the young ones to feel old, and what a wonderful sense of community. And if you think about it, volunteering is about community, and that's what everything's about, right? The one thing that this virtual life takes away from us, if we permit it, it just means you have to really work harder at getting the sense of community. So I give that one to you as something to really think about. You've got plenty of time on your hands to think about it and be inventive and think about something that actually would be really interesting to you. Whatever you do, don't waste this time. You might suddenly find yourself with less time on your hands than you have now. So now could be a brilliant time to be inventive and to ask among different age groups around you what opportunities might be there, and pick and choose and make sure you come up with something that really works for you and gets you into a different zone to that which you've been used to occupying. Energy, keep that one up. I'm sure you're all pretty energetic and bouncing off the walls with frustration at not being able to do more. Well, we'd all go out more now and many of you will be in the country, so you can get out more. Just use that time and make sure you keep your energy up, because the way to keep energy is to use more, use a bit more each day, and it keeps you fit and it really helps your mental health. This is Mental Health Week I'm making this recording in, and never has it been more obvious to everyone, the world at large. It doesn't matter how much money you've got or how much money you haven't got. Mental health and lack of it is available to all of us, only too readily. So keeping that energy up and your fitness level up is a huge way of topping up your dopamine and making sure that nothing can attack you from the inside out. Your mind is strong and resilient. Adaptability, again from your CV, where adaptability has really played a role, where you've had to really swing into action. Analysing and problem solving. I'm sure if you really think about it, you've had to think about this one. For example, how do you choose the different subjects without conflicts on the syllabus? How do you choose where you're going to live without upsetting one or other parent? Or how do you choose anything with the least amount of conflict? That's a good way of choosing a route. And that's very helpful again, because in the workplace, the one thing everyone is very intent on is not having conflict. And in fact, having people who are oil on troubled waters. If anything, if a conflict is about to arise, the mere presence of one person is a calming influence, because they know with your presence, you're going to have a good impact on what happens next. Teamwork. You all had a chance for teamwork at school. Some of you weren't very sporty, some of you were very sporty. But you'll all have an example of how somewhere along the line you have shown an ability to be a good team member, even if it's organising a book club, organising anything that's to do with an interest which is non-sporty is just as team orientated. So for example, book clubs right now, I now find, because we can't meet up for book clubs, some of us have got breakaway bridge clubs or chess clubs. And some of us are playing amazing thought-producing code names, which is word association, which does your head in if you had to try it. It's really difficult, but it's a lovely thing to have. And if you have people prepared to play it with you, it's a great test, not of learning. It's a test of knowing each other and being able to think outside a box. It's a bit like Go, if you've tried playing that. It's a real mind bender. And what a great time to bend your mind, because you've got time. And this is a time when you can really build on that opportunity. So make the most of it. Communication. Now, remember, we have a horrible thing called freezing, and this can happen when you're on screen. Because of the freezing, make sure your face is, even when you're thinking, in a position which is friendly and smiley and genuine. I'm not talking about Cheshire Cat grin, but if you're going to freeze, let it be a freeze with a pleasant expression on your face. And this is again why really preparing yourself in advance for an interview, so you're not having to go through an enormously deep think for the first time, can be really helpful, because a lot of people might look as if either they're grumpy or perhaps they've got indigestion when they're thinking. Their face falls into a very thoughtful repose, which is not as appealing as a smiley face. So just give that one some thought. Your communication is very much verbal, of course, in this instance. So just make sure that you've got all your courtesies really together. So for example, at the beginning of an interview, when someone says, "Hello, how are you?" then do reply slowly and carefully, "Thank you, I'm very well, and I hope you are too." How you begin an interview and how you end an interview is what is very memorable. The middle bit's important, but the courtesy you show and the respect you show and the appreciation you show for someone giving up their time to interview you is really important. There are a lot of people out there right now, and they're all competing for the same jobs, all of you. If you want to stand out, I would have said, in concrete interview terms, you be the one who pushes your chair in when you stand up ready to leave the room, because you're saving the interviewer the trouble of having to push your chair in for you. In other words, you're behaving with respect and with courtesy. It's old world, but it's what makes people remember you. Now, in this instance, when someone says goodbye to you, you're having to really look for the signals. Is this a real goodbye? But we won't come to that goodbye for a moment, because there's one other very important thing I want you to think about preparing. We've been dealing with questions which are going to be inspecting you. Now we're going to deal with your questions. Now, before you go into any interview, you should have 3 questions that you want to ask. You'll have a pretty good idea of what the company does and what the opportunity is. That you know. But there should be 3 questions you can think of which are specific to you and particular for you that you can pose. And the quality of the question you come up with will be a reflection of the quality of you. So let it be a well-posed question. Let it not be a question about money. Let it not be a question about hours. Let it not be a question of what you can take from the organization. Let it be a question that is to do with what opportunity there is for you to give to the organization and for you to improve your own learning by giving to the organization. That shows a real thinking in you of being a contributor. So think of those questions with great care. It could be something like, I feel that I'm pretty good at analyzing and problem solving. Could you give me some examples of how I might find myself using that part of myself in your company? Or, I know I'm pretty good at being resilient. Are you able to tell me what kind of tests I'm going to be able to be put to by you, which is going to be testing my resilience? Because if it's something I'm good at, I quite like to have the opportunity of shining. Emotional intelligence, which is built into influence. In this very virtual world that we're entering into, what opportunity do you think I'm going to have for using my emotional intelligence? In other words, how much opportunity will I have, apart from my direct line boss, to be able to talk to other members of the company? Perhaps it might be a difficult one for you to answer, but can you give me any idea? Those 3 questions are all appealing to different aspects of yourself, and I've just thought about them just on the hoof. You all have different areas that you might look at and think about that, again, you could pose in a way which is revealing of yourself, but revealing all the good things about yourself and revealing the fact that you want to be a contributing person to the would-be employer. So it's got to have you shining, whichever way you look at it. And emotional intelligence at a time when everything is so virtual is terribly important. They have an office rule among the wise: never send an email that has any kind of emotional content, because it's guaranteed to upset. If there's an emotional message that needs to be conveyed, convey it verbally, convey it orally. In the same way, in this virtual world, how you present yourself and how you convey yourself has the opportunity of being uplifting, which is of course what we all want, or pretty grim. So think about examples that you might have in your background where you've had to deliver a difficult message in a way which is going to be most acceptable. There'll be something you can find in your private life or in your school life that you can draw on there, for example. So just think about that, because that shows the integrity of thinking, and it also shows the sensitivity and emotional development that you are at. Obviously, all of you will shine in one area more than another. So just focus on what you can do. If you can't do it, don't even think about it. Just focus on your strengths, not on your weaknesses. It's your strengths that someone will wish to employ you for, not your weaknesses. Your weaknesses will catch up. By the time you're 30, most of you will be much more similar in these kind of essences of competencies, simply because you've been knocking around for longer and you've learned more. So that's down the track for you, and it won't be all bad. In fact, it'll be fun. Fun, that's something I just wanted to mention, because I think that the office and commuting, the commuting is grim. No one enjoys the commute. It's something that you have to do in order to get to the office. But the office itself is fun. Even someone at the end of the line that you don't much like, it's someone you can talk to and pass the time of day. Everyone has a role. Those weird people, none of you have a lot in common, but all of you have the common function of making the company go forward. So that's something to bond with. As a new person in the office, you learn an enormous amount by your radar hearing. You hear someone say something, do something, and you learn inadvertently. You can't help it. You're learning because you've never done it before, and you're being exposed to other people who've been around for ages doing it. So you didn't need to go on a course to learn about how you speak to someone on the phone or how you do anything. You're having it demonstrated on a daily basis. And that, for the moment, you're being deprived of. So learning as much as you go along as you can is very important. And I hope that all of you will be looking at the person you're going to be working most closely with in your new roles, because they're the ones that you're going to have the opportunity of learning most from, because you're working side by side, because you're receiving instruction, you're collaborating, you're needing to understand what they're looking to achieve, so that you can put your ideas forward as to how else you think could be another way of achieving that objective. So all these things are something for you to be taking into account when the opportunity comes up. Now, because all of you are different, all of you shine in different ways, when you're interviewed by our consultants, you'll be getting very individual advice from them, which will be particular to you and not to your best friend or not to your second best friend or whatever. It's very particular to you and how you perform within the confines of an interview. So that lies ahead. But these are the kind of areas that people are going to be looking for and looking into. So these are the areas that you need to be looking for on your CV as to where you showed that particular initiative, where you showed that particular level of integrity, where you showed your teamwork, where you showed your ability to influence, where you showed your adaptability, where you demonstrated your ability to be able to communicate well in the written word and also in the spoken word, all those good things. And now we come to how you say farewell. Now, the termination of an interview is very much in the hands of the employer. So you'll be looking at the signals, and all the way through the interview, you'd have been saying a concise answer because you've prepared the answer in advance. And then at the end of the answer, you'll be saying, would you like me to enlarge on that, or have I said enough? Would you like me to enlarge on that, or have I said enough? This gives the interviewer the opportunity of saying, yeah, I'd love you to tell me a bit more about that. Yeah, that's interesting. Tell me more, tell me more. Rather than you banging on about stuff that really no one wants to hear any more about. You've done the job. So just think about that and give the interviewer the opportunity of putting your interview into 40 minutes max. That's as long as they want or need to be able to make an estimate of you. 40 minutes. So you going banging on about something which they don't want to hear about is using up valuable time when you could be talking about something they do want to hear about, but you've run yourself out of time. It's important not to talk too much. It's important not to talk too little. It's important to be pre-prepared so that you can be precise and concise about the answer. And to say, did you want me to talk about this? Or is this what you're wanting to hear about? And moving on. And now we come to the farewell. And here again is your opportunity of shining. They say, well, thank you very much indeed for coming for the interview. They will normally say, I've very much enjoyed meeting you. If they don't, then it's a shame, but never mind, because that's what you're supposed to say. And you say, well, thank you very much for the interview. I've really enjoyed it. You say that whether you have or not. I've really enjoyed it. And I really hope I have the opportunity of talking with you again. I'm going to rephrase that. And I really hope I have the opportunity of speaking with you again. And hopefully of joining your organization. Now say that. Say it, say it, say it. Don't think afterwards, or don't think at the time, I wonder if I want this job or not. Don't even think about it. You give all your consideration to that after the interview. And I have to tell you, there won't be a plethora of opportunities for you. And now is the time when, if you're going to be willing to stand down on some of your high-flown principles of what I absolutely have got to have, do that. Compromise, compromise, compromise. Just make sure that you're not compromising on things which are important. You cannot compromise on standards. You cannot compromise on beliefs. You cannot compromise on integrity. But you can compromise on the initial job content. And it's important that you do in order to get your foot in the door. During the last downturn, I remember we had someone registered with us. She was about 34, 35, very highly qualified with a banking background. No jobs in banking, absolutely fat zero. And she really wanted to get into it. And we said, well, you could be on our books for a very long while. Will you do some temporary work? Yep, I'll do some temporary work. Okay, I've got a great reception job for you. This is a woman who's used to earning way in excess of 65, 75,000 a year. Yeah, I'd love to be a receptionist, she said. Lovely. For a week? Yep, for a week. I'll be a receptionist for a week. Fabulous. And she went into a hedge fund in Mayfair for a week's reception work. She was brilliant at her job. She made everyone just think how adorable she was and how extremely pleasant it was to have someone who handled the calls, who handled the queries, who always just went the extra mile and always with a smile. And at the end of the week, they said, so what are you going to be doing now? Where are you going to be going? I don't know. I'm looking for a job with a hedge fund. Oh, are you? Looking for a job with a hedge fund? Okay. Well, let's just give that one some thought. Let's have an interview with you this afternoon. Well, short story, she joined. She joined them the following week in a very highly paid job as an executive. Why did they take her on then? They didn't need her, but they knew at some stage they would. So they grabbed her while they had her because they knew perfectly well she had so much going for her. She wasn't going to be on the market for very long. And these same things can happen to you. Another example of a college leaver who came to see me, a friend's daughter. She came to see me wearing a little grey suit and a little white, beautifully ironed white shirt. Butter wouldn't melt, nice sensible shoes, hair in a ponytail. And she did a very good interview with me. And I got her a trainee job with a large firm of very conservative management consultants. Well, the following, or 2 days later, I bumped into her at my local club. She was unrecognizable. She had about 20 earrings in her left ear, something through her nose, another one through her eyebrow. She was Miss Metal, and in her trainers and in her workout kit. That was the other side of her. And I said, oh, hi, how are you doing? And we all smiled because she knew very well the other face she'd shown me of herself. Anyway, again, I placed her with a firm of management consultants as a trainee, on a very low salary, 21K. Within 3 months, because of her great ability as far as mathematics was concerned, she'd been raised to a consultant level. And she traveled all over Europe because she had 2 languages anyway, using her mathematical ability, and was actually called a consultant. And her salary level was way up, 55K. So these things can happen. Now, I'm not saying they will happen to you. I'm not saying they will happen immediately. But these things happen if you just get yourself out there, get yourself seen. People who are clever don't want to waste talent. If they see the talent, they will exploit it to your benefit. So just take what's out there, get started, and then you'll find that life will do the rest for you because people will fall in love with you. Isn't that lovely? So I have great confidence this will happen for you. All you had to do is just do all the stuff I told you. Prepare yourself, look good on the day, use the techniques I've said to you, have good quality questions, stay positive, stay thinking. In the end, things lifting is going to depend on everyone, and that includes your generation, the generation 2020. And you can be so certain that the adults around you who've been around the block a few times are so wanting to help you, because I think everyone thinks you've got very much the thin end of the wedge right now, which is why I'm making this gift to you of the best knowledge I can think of for people coming out right now to give you a real head start. And I really hope you use this information to your benefit. And I hope the 2020 OMBS group goes out and shines. And we'll certainly do our very best to help you shine. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye and very good luck. And stay safe. Bye.